You'll be like me, and you'll enjoy a day of barbecue, fireworks, and hopefully we're about to celebrate our nation's 240th. Hey, I don't know if you know this, I'm sure you do, but we're about to celebrate our nation's 247th birthday. And I figure that you'll be like me, and you'll enjoy a day of barbecue, fireworks, and hopefully some ice cream, watermelon, and maybe even a parade. Now, for the past few years around the 4th of July, I do wonder how many more. Hey, I don't know if you know this, I'm sure you do, but we're about to celebrate our nation's 247th birthday. And I figure that you'll be like me, and you'll enjoy a day of barbecue, fireworks, and hopefully some ice cream, watermelon, and maybe even a parade. Now, for the past few years around the 4th of July, I do wonder how many more birthdays does this old girl have left? When I was a kid, it seemed as if nothing would ever topple the country that I grew up in. I mean, it was the happy days of the 50s and 60s, when most people were experiencing an advancing level of financial security. The greatest generation of World War II had come home to start families, build homes, and take jobs in the factories or farm. Everybody was feeling pretty good about being an American. And we for sure had our shortcomings. The despicable and dreadful marks of real racism meant that not everyone had the same opportunities, although there was progress. The Supreme Court was quite right in Brown versus Board of Education when it declared that having two separate levels of public education was unconstitutional, even though it would take decades for states to actually implement the equality of an adequate education. But in the late 60s, anger and cynicism grew over a government that had become corrupt and engaged in exactly what President Eisenhower warned against: the military-industrial complex. We entered a long war that we really didn't have a strategy to win, but we found it hard to disengage because too many industries depended on making the machinery of the war. We sent young men to fight in that war who did the duty their country required, but their country didn't return the favor with appreciation or respect or the support or medical care that they deserved and should have had from the moment they got back home. And over 50,000 of those young men didn't come home at all. Our streets during that time were filled with violence and riots, looting and anarchy. College campuses became battlefields of mind and body. And drugs and sexual promiscuity were ubiquitous. And we wondered if the country would survive all that. But somehow we did. We find ourselves at this 247th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence wondering how many years just have we left? One of the inside jokes in my own family was that my dad, after having had a heart attack in his 50s, thought every birthday would be his last. And he would always tell us quite seriously each Christmas, there was a good chance that I won't be around next Christmas. So every year we would kind of obligingly celebrate his last Christmas, which ultimately became known as the 22nd annual Last Christmas, which frankly turned out to actually be the last one. But his annual Last Christmas was sort of like the Rolling Stones farewell tours. I mean, there have been 20 of those, and heck, Mick Jagger turns 80 years old this month. But even good things and good people come to a conclusion. I just hope it's not true of America. I love this country. I really do. I know it's got its faults, and it's been far from perfect. But even our founders recognized that we would strive to be a more perfect union, not that we had already become one. This country has been really good to me, a kid who grew up in typical Southern poverty in a little rent house in a small Arkansas town that no one ever had heard of. And I wasn't just the first male in my family to go to college. I was the first male in my entire family lineage to even graduate high school. I doubted I would ever see a governor in person, much less become one, or more importantly now, be the father of one. I sometimes sit on our property and I just thank God for the blessings that exceed my wildest expectations. Frankly, I got a lot to celebrate this 4th of July, and I hope you do as well. But I'm genuinely concerned that if our great nation doesn't have a spiritual awakening soon, we're going to blow out the candles for the last time on America's birthday cake. I'd rather keep going to America's birthday party instead of her funeral. What threatens our nation's survival isn't divisive politics or the economy or even the results of rampant crime. It's a spiritual decline due to our rejection of God's truth and the foolish creation of something that people call my truth, which is simply a way of one saying that he or she will be one's own God. Pray for our country. Pray we turn from the selfishness and the stupidity of rejecting eternal truth. And pray that our great country celebrates many more birthdays. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet,